On this episode of Doing the Most, we are making mango wine.
Homemade brews and various how-tos, everything from meat to roast, bake creation, fermentation, inebriation, doing the most.
This recipe, like others in this series, comes from Jack Keller's book, Home Winemaking, and we're making a dozen wines from his book over the next year. This video marks the beginning of a playlist that will log all of those Jack Keller wine videos so you can stay caught up on all of them. And a big shout out to our friends over at Homebrew Ohio. Thank you so much. They sponsored this video series and provided gear and equipment to make these videos possible. So check out Homebrew Ohio if you need gear. There are actually links that support the channel down in the description of this video for basically every piece of gear and equipment that you're going to see in this video that goes into making this mango wine. Thank you, Homebrew Ohio. This recipe is sort of simple. It's also very straightforward. There are some things in here for acid and tannin balance, but mainly this recipe is to highlight the mango. And there are a couple of things that we're not gonna do that Jack recommends in his book, just for simplicity, but also for making this recipe in its barest form, so we can know exactly what it's like without those other things. He does recommend certain acid adjustments to get it into the pH range that he prefers. There's also wiggle room for 3 to 4 cups of sugar in this recipe. We're gonna go with just the 3, the bare minimum that are recommended. If you wanna see all the different ways his recipe can be tweaked that he recommends, those are in his book, and there's a link in the description for where you can pick up that book. And that link also supports the channel. I would really encourage you to get a copy of Jack's home winemaking book because it is just like the Bible of home winemaking, and he knows how to use all sorts of different ingredients, from vegetables to flowers to herbs to fruits, and so it's a really good kind of compendium of home winemaking knowledge. So I've blathered on enough. Let's get into making some mango wine. We will start with the ingredients. The ingredients for Jack Keller's mango wine are 4 pounds of chopped mangoes, half a can of 100% white grape juice concentrate, 1 teaspoon of pectic enzyme, 1/8 teaspoon of grape tannin, 3 cups of sugar, 1 teaspoon of yeast nutrient, and while the recipe calls for Lalvin's BA11 yeast, I couldn't find it. So I used a close approximation and went with K1V 1116. And before we get started on process, one last note. You may have seen in our other Jack Keller videos, the secondary volume on these wines is always less than 1 gallon, sometimes significantly less. You'll see in this video that we got about 3/4 of a gallon after we racked it from primary to secondary, which creates headspace issues in some instances. So if you're gonna make one of Jack Keller's wines, you wanna have a smaller secondary vessel, maybe a 3-quart secondary vessel to rack into, or you might want to scale the recipe up by 25 or 30%, so that way you are minimizing your headspace issues if you're moving from that 2-gallon bucket into a 1-gallon carboy. Like you'll see here, you can just cold crash it, clear it up real quick, and get it into bottles before you have too many concerns about oxidation issues. So let's make some mango wine. We begin with all of our ingredients laid out and getting some water on to heat. We're just going to bring this water up to a boil. And meanwhile, we're going to get our mango chunks into some straining bags. This was enough that I ended up using 2 muslin straining bags to fit everything in there. I could have used a larger bag, but I had these 2 smaller ones on hand and they worked pretty well. I know you probably wouldn't, but you shouldn't ferment on mango skins. Mangoes are in the same family as the poison ivy plant, and so that compound that can create an itchy contact dermatitis, that is also found in the skins of the mango fruit. So it's in much lower concentrations, but you still don't want to expose yourself or someone who's really allergic to poison ivy to that compound. Now, again, I don't think you're going to be fermenting on mango skins, but just don't. And to save yourself some headache, you could actually use pre-chopped mango. The mango we used in this video came from the grocery store freezer section, so it had already been chopped, frozen, and thawed, which is perfect for homebrewing. And also, it's a good time to point out that there are different kinds of mangoes that you can get. Our Asian market here up the road has several different kinds of mangoes throughout the year. And so, kind of like apples and pears, you might want to mix varieties of mango to see what you like. You might want some more tart ones, some more sweet ones, some with an orangier flesh, some with a yellower flesh. You know, play with the flavor profile and see what works best for your palate. We will place our mango in the bags in a sanitized 2-gallon brewing bucket. This gives us plenty of room for the mango to float and expand in a way that a glass jug carboy just wouldn't work. Next, we're going to add our grape juice concentrate, and at this time, due to supply chain issues, canned grape juice concentrate wasn't available. Fortunately, I was able to make my own by just reducing down some grape juice to about 25% of its original volume, creating this lovely grape juice concentrate. Once our water comes up to a boil, we will cut the heat and then add it to our bowl of sugar. And of course, you want to make sure that you use a heat-safe bowl for this. You don't want to use something that you might accidentally shock with the heat and crack. A little stir, stir, stir. And once that's combined, we will add it to our mangoes. Then with a sanitized potato masher, we will crush up our mango chunks. And add our wine tannin. Then our nutrient, here using diammonium phosphate. And then we're going to bring that up to the 1 gallon mark with some icy cold water. Stir, stir, stir. Then we will add our pectic enzyme. You don't want to add your pectic enzyme when the must is warm because that can denature the enzyme, so we want to make sure it's cooled down before that goes in. And then we'll add our yeast. Again, here we're substituting in K1V1116 because I couldn't find the other yeast. We will sprinkle that entire packet right on top. Then our sanitized lid will go on, and we will add an airlock to keep any of the little buggies out. I like to fill my airlocks with Starzan. Other people use water or vodka, just something to create a liquid barrier between your wine and the outside. Here I'm using a 3-piece bubbler airlock. And that'll go away for a few days. And Jack says to press the bag every day for the first few days. I chose not to do that because after the first day the mango had really started to come apart and I didn't feel there was any need to nudge it along. So once our specific gravity got down to 1.020 per Jack's recipe, I went ahead and squeezed all the liquid out of those mango bags and discarded them to the compost heap. And there was not much left in there, just a little bit of stringy pulp. So that lid goes back on, and that will continue fermenting until it goes to 1.000, or in this case, slightly lower. We ended up 0.998 and transferred that off to a carboy. And again, just circling back, you can see there's significant headspace in the top of that carboy. About 25% of the carboy is empty. So we did cold crash it. That took about a week to get it to clear up in the wine fridge over here. And then I bottled it right after that. And like all of Jack's recipes we're doing in this series, we're bottling them dry, no stabilizing, no back sweetening, so we can see exactly how they turn out in their barest form. And once that had cleared up, we got it into bottles. Just bottled here with crown caps and made sure to note on the cap what was in the bottle. So let's get to tasting. I have never made a mango wine to my recollection. until this one. I've done some mango ferments, but never just a straight mango ferment. And now, again, this one does have that little bit of grape juice. That's kind of a hack that Jack does to bring a little bit of wininess into some of his recipes, but I would consider this to be a mango wine. I wouldn't call it a mango grape wine just based on that. It smells very tropical right over the bottle. It smells sweet. As you can see, that cold crash cleared it up nicely. Beautiful golden yellow color on there. It's got like a mixed fruit tropical kind of aromatic. Like I might believe that there was a little bit of pineapple or something, guava, something like that in here. That's dry. That is dry. There's not much indication of sweetness in there. Once you get past the dryness, then you start picking up those fruit nuances. But it takes a couple of sips to get in there and acclimate your brain to dry, no sugar mango. It does taste a little bit like mango candy or like mango fruit leather. There's definitely a fermented character in there. The mango fruit has definitely changed a little bit. You don't pick up a lot of the wininess from that grape juice concentrate. There's not like a white wine kind of essence to it. I think some back sweetening would probably help bring out that mango flavor. I could see how just a touch of sweetness, maybe taking it up to 1.01 or 1.015, could give it just enough sweetness to round out that flavor profile. But it's not bad as a dry country fruit wine either. There's some intrigue there. I think I would, if I was going to make this again, build the body out a little bit. I might chop up a banana and put in there in primary too. Not to give it banana flavor, but to give it that kind of added tannic kind of density that bananas can add. It drinks just slightly thinner than what I would want necessarily out of a mango wine. But that's something that can be adjusted in secondary fairly easily. All in all, the mango flavor is retained really well. I think there are some interesting lessons to take away from this in so far as balance. I think this is a recipe that on the surface of it is probably not perfect for everybody's palate. I think everybody's going to want a little sweetness. I think everybody's going to want a little bit more body out of this. I could see how subbing the sugar for honey, using about 30% more honey, could turn this into an interesting mead. But I think to balance it out as a mead, that you would need even more adjustment than you would doing this as a wine. I think if I was going to do it a second time, like I said, I would add something for a bodybuilder, I would sweeten it. But I think I would also replace some, if not all of the sugar in here, with brown sugar, dark brown sugar. Maybe do a 50-50, like a chocolate chip cookie recipe. But 50-50 with white sugar and brown sugar, just to get some of that density, that molasses kind of character in here, I think would support that candy, fruit leathery kind of flavor of the mango better than just a straight sucrose, regular old country fruit wine. So far, of the ones that we've made, this is not my favorite. I don't dislike it. I think age will treat this one really well, but I'm inspired to brew more with mango and maybe at some point do my own spin on a mango wine or mead. It's an interesting fruit. It's a very variable fruit depending on the type of mango and the time that it is harvested. And this comes like 70% of the way of capturing what I want out of a mango wine. If you enjoyed this video, and you have yet to subscribe to our channel, make sure you go ahead and do that. Hit that bell for notifications. We do a ton of homebrewing content here on the channel, and we're gonna have a bunch more Jack Keller winemaking videos coming up. You can also follow us on Instagram, join our Discord community. It's just a hoppin' community of homebrewers waiting to be your newest, bestest friend. They love to help out, answer your questions, share their wisdom, and of course, learn from your wisdom. So join our Discord server, share with the community, be part of something great. Until next time, happy brewing, happy winemaking, and cheers.